This is part 2 of ELA Crunch number 3. Be safe, boys, said Ann Grierson, kissing them each on the cheeks and hugging them hard. And remember your manners. As Mac and Dennis pulled away, they saw her husband holding her body shaking with sobs. A week later, Mac and Dennis had zigzagged through dozens of small towns and a few larger cities. What they found frightened them. Every place was empty. Not a person was out. Sometimes they would stop and knock on doors. No one would answer. If they went inside, they wouldn't find a single soul home. Sometimes they'd find the dinner table set, plates piled high with molding food. Every time they entered a new room, they both winced, thinking they'd find a dead body. But they never did. It was indescribably eerie. Sometimes if the place still got electricity, they'd try to use the phone. Every time, no matter what number they dialed, the same recorded message came on. The number is not in service. Please check the number and try again. Finally, the young men decided to make tracks to the nearest big city. It would be a full day of driving, but there had to be someone there. You can't abandon a whole city. Dusk had come, and Mac was at the wheel. Dennis had been driving for the last 8 hours and was taking a nap in the passenger seat. They were passing through a long, flat piece of pasture land when Mac saw a flicker of movement in the distance. He stopped the car, turned off the engine, and shook Dennis awake. "Look," Mac said excitedly, "I think someone's coming." Dennis squinted his eyes. The flicker of movement was becoming larger. What had been a dot of motion became a long line stretching across the horizon. Mac and Dennis strained to see. "I think it's some people," said Dennis. "Let me get my binoculars." He rustled in his backpack and pulled out his pair. Dennis put them to his eyes and looked through them. Mac heard him gasp. "My gosh," whispered Dennis. What he saw was people. Thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands, maybe 1,000,000. A swarm of people like the world had never seen. And the people were all running. They were running as fast as they could go, like something was chasing them, or like they were chasing something. As they grew closer, Dennis could make out the people's faces. Their eyes were wild. "Start the car," said Dennis. Okay, so that is the end of the 2 reading passages. The next thing I'm going to read for you is the crunch questions. Number 1. Question number 1 says, in an unexpected trip, identify how Sarah feels on the trip that she takes with her parents. Eager and hopeful, angry and upset, confident and happy, or scared and confused and scared. Question number 2. Read the following sentence. Sarah's mom and dad had said not to worry and that everything was fine. If everything was fine, though, why had they gotten so upset when the phone had rung last night? Identify what you can conclude from these sentences. That's going to be a DWB that you're going to need to put on. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not. I apologize. That one's not a DWB. Your answer choices are: last night, a stranger called Sarah's home to give her parents some good news. B, Sarah's mom and dad are cheerful people who never worry about anything. C, Sarah's mom and dad are worried about how much it will cost to go on a family trip. Or D, something may be wrong, but Sarah's parents do not want to talk about it. Question number 3, identify the sequence of events at the beginning of the story, The Run. The story begins as the disease is striking and then takes the reader 2 years into the future. The story begins as the disease is striking and then takes the reader back in time to a point before the disease. The story begins before the disease has struck and then takes the reader forward in time to a point after the disease has ended. Or the last option is the story begins after the disease has struck and then takes the reader back in time to a point before the disease. Question number 4. Read the following sentence from The Run. More and more people were getting sick. The symptoms were strange. People would become violently ill, then fall into a long, deep sleep. Identify the meaning of the word symptoms. Signs of a disease, fears of getting sick, serious injuries, or doctor's suggestion. Number 5 and number 6 are both of your ERQs. Make sure that you have a DWB for these. Number 5, describe what is similar between what happens at the end of an unexpected trip and what happens at the end of the run. Support your answer with one piece of evidence from each text. So in other words, you better have a piece of evidence from an unexpected trip and one from the run. Put them all together in at least one paragraph form. 5 sentences at least. DWB. And number 6, describe why an author might provide clues about what is happening in a story instead of simply explaining it. Support your answer with one piece of evidence from both texts. Again, describe why an author might provide clues about what is happening in a story instead of simply explaining it. Support your answer with one piece of evidence from both texts. DWB, it's an ERQ, need at least 5 sentences. Don't forget, we'll be working on 8 by the end of this school year. Welcome to 8th grade, kids. Let me shut everything down. I do believe that is the end of our ELA Crunch number 3, video number 2. You guys have a great day and learn something new.